talk to the whole body and say, what's the general consensus? I think there was a lot of missteps. I was initially not completely opposed to it. I went to the seminar in Leominster, and the only thing I gathered out of that was given by an attorney, a very smart individual, and what he does is represent chiefs of police and fire to get them the very best financial situation that he can. That's what I took out of that. That soured me right away. I thought it was going to be more of a Board of Fire Engineers as opposed to strong chief, and it wasn't. And he even told me face to face that if our Board of Engineers is working, leave it alone.
I guess just to respond to all the responses here, you know, what I witnessed the other night and over the past couple weeks, that there seems to be some serious division on this within the department. You know, it looked like it was EMS versus firefighters. It just looked very unhealthy and not something that, you know, we hear that, you know, we heard one of the reasons why to go forward was because the department's in a good place. And I think it is in a good place, but you had a lot of questions. People didn't understand it. They didn't know. We really didn't have a good handle on the costs. I know, Toby, you presented something, but it was one scenario. In something like this, I think we really have to do other scenarios, almost a little focused feasibility study. You know, what are the options here? So I guess what I saw, it was very unhealthy, and it really soured me on it. I don't think it's a bad idea. I think ultimately it will be a good thing for the town, but I want the fire department to stay, in the EMS department, to stay together and not have a bunch of defections over something like this, because one, I think you guys do a great job, and secondly, if we had a major problem, the town is in an awful financial situation. So I would just hope that in the future that there's a little more consensus building among the rank and file, and presenting, you know, the information up front, giving everyone enough time to think about it, have some discussion. At some point in time, you drag in other, you know, the selectmen. Again, we don't want to run your department, but again, what I saw was pretty unhealthy. So I'll turn over the next question to Joe or Mike.
Yeah, I think I want to build on what you said, Patrick. Right now, it would appear that you have a divided department from the phone calls I've received over the last few days, from what I witnessed. And I think that you, the board, owns that. Everyone, regardless if you are in support of the engineer position, a strong chief rather, or not. So when you don't operate as a cohesive unit, then public safety's at risk. If there's anything that I learned in 4 years of being in the military, is that you have to be a unit of one. And when you respond, you all have to work together. And there seems to be some division within the department. In terms of the strong chief, I think that, and I will say it again, it's better to have change, and it's great there's a lot of firefighters here. It's better to have change come from within the department and not from outside. Is the department working fine? I'm not going to judge that. That's for folks to judge through town meeting and on their own. I don't see any visible problems, but everyone told me before I became a selectman that the town finances are great, in great shape. Does anyone agree that the town finances are in great shape? Please raise your hand. We've been dealing with a $2 million structural deficit, and we're down to about, what, 500,000? So, so I'm not sure about that qualification. Also, we talk about people out in the community say, well, we have a chief. Well, we don't have a chief, do we? Do we have a chief? No. We have a chief engineer. So we don't have a chief. So I think that if folks really got and looked at the department and said, well, how is this working, there would probably be a lot of questions. We do not have a chief. We do not have a fire chief. We have a chief engineer. We do not have accountability to the taxpayers because there's no direct line. This happens every year. So now we're confronted with the Board of Selectmen are confronted with potentially changing the personalities of the board. Changes direction. Why would it change? Just to change? No accountability. Why are you changing it? Who knows? Personalities. We don't like what's going on, so we'll change it. Selectmen come in, change it around, see what happens. Not necessarily a good model. Also, I don't think anyone would run a business by committee. Those days are gone. Some say, well, the Board of Selectmen is working fine. I would say not, because it's dependent, town finances and the administration and the guidance by the Selectmen is dependent on who gets voted in, who gets voted out, not necessarily on qualifications. And it's so important to have a qualified Board of Selectmen. So that's kind of the context of what I'm thinking. Now, back to the board and to Milty. There appears to be a problem with leadership. There appears to be a divided department. I want to hear from each of you how you will fix that if you are appointed. What you will do personally. I hear that you're taking ownership, which is a good start. Now, how are you going to bring the unit back together and work as a unit of one so you don't compromise public safety?
Well, I think we've already started on that. I mean, just last Monday, or was it 2 days ago now, we realized that there was a problem with the Board of Engineers, with the way that we can spend and purchase things. And so that I think that in itself is just, realize that there is a problem and we can go forward from there. I think our trainings are important. It brings the whole department together, whether it's EMS or fire. They need to work together, so I think is a big key.
What are you going to do?
What am I going to do?
Yeah. Tell me some things you're specifically going to do to address the leadership concerns that your department has. The folks are calling me. There's leadership concerns with the board. What are you going to do to address that? How are you going to give confidence to the rank and file in terms of leadership and bring the unit back together?
I think I'll have to talk to more people and see what they think the problems are and discuss it with them. I mean, my door is always open. It doesn't, I see a few people, but not many come in. So maybe I need to go out there and go back to where I was before.
Good start. Yeah. Peter?
Well, one of the first things I'll do is start beating on the bushes and finding out more about the strong chief, because it seems like that's the role that's going to take place here in the near future. Next few years, couple years, next year, 3 years, whatever it is. And secondly, I'd sit down with each individual company and find out what some of the biggest concerns are that are bothering them. And if there is a division or a wedge being driven that I wasn't at that whole meeting that you folks were at because we had a fire call, so I can't really go except for what I'm told on what happened there. But if there is a wedge being driven between the ambulance and the fire department, that is one of the first things we need to address and get that wiped off the plate.
Good.
Because it took a long time to get the ambulance and the fire department together, and to be completely honest with you, although you guys may have seen a bunch of personalities come out all in one little small room in a heated time where all this discussion has been taking place, I do want to assure you that, and the people watching, that when that fire alarm goes off, we don't have that. Everybody works together like an orchestra when the chips are down. So if that makes you feel any better, we have an excellent crew on both fire and EMS, and I just think that maybe some tensions may have flared a little bit, and it may have come out the wrong way to you guys. But I don't think it's that bad. And whatever there is for a problem, I think we need to talk about it and fix it.
Good. Thank you.
John, I just wanted to know, all the folks here for the 7:15 public hearing, we're running a little bit late, so we will we'll get that started as soon as we're done with the Board of Fire Engineers. So thank you, Jonathan.
Yeah, I have to reiterate what Pete said around, as far as, on the fire ground, the bringing EMS into the fire department is probably one of the most positive